17 and 18.
धाटीषु ते विहगराज मृगाधिराज नागाधिराज गजराज हयाधिराजाः स्वस्वाधिकारमहिमाधिकमर्थयन्ते श्रीवेङ्कटाचलपते तव सुप्रभातम् सूर्येन्दुभौमबुधवाक्पतिकाव्यसौरि स्वर्भानुकेतुदिविषत् परिषत्प्रधानाः त्वद्दासदासचरमावधिदासदासाः श्रीवेङ्कटाचलपते तव सुप्रभातम् सूर्येन्दुभौमबुधवाक्पतिकाव्यसौरि स्वर्भानुकेतुदिविषत्परिषत्प्रधानाः त्वद्दासदासचरमावधिदासदासाः श्रीवेङ्कटाचलपते तव सुप्रभातम्.
Very nice. Dhatishu te vihagaraja mrigadhiraja nagadhiraja gajaraja hayadhirajaha swaswadhikara mahimadhikamarthayante Shri Venkatachalapate tava suprabhatam. So here all the various vahanas of Venkateswara are invoked or brought to mind. So before this, we were the last week when we saw what Seva, Parashiva, Suresha, Krishanudharma, Rakshompunatha, Pavamana, Dhanadinathaha, Baddhanjali, Pravila Sannija Shirsha Deshaha. If you remember this one, we said all the Ashtadikpalaka are there in their own Nija Shirsha Deshaha, Nija Shirsha Deshaha, Nija Deshaha. They are, they continue to be in their own places. Like we said, for example, we do the Nyasa, right? Nyasa, the process of Nyasa is such that we invoke these deities and we ensure that those deities are in the place that they ought to be and they function in the way they ought to function. Okay, this is dharma. If the fire doesn't glow and doesn't burn as much as it should, then there is a problem, right? We won't get the necessary heat and light. So if any of these elements don't perform their duties that they need to perform in the way they ought to perform, then there is what is called as disease. And a disease can be in the body, the disease can be in your environment, right? So we want all of these to function the way they ought to function and be in the place they ought to be. Nija Deshaha, in their own places. We don't want them to cross over, right? And why is this important? Only then this, when we do it within our bodies, within our physical bodies, if all these things are in their right places, then the ability for us to rise above the body is possible, right? Kartal, if I want to sit down and meditate and wire kalakinde what are we meditating upon? Right? What will I be able to meditate upon? Right? I'll not be able to rise above the body. So to be able to spend some time above the conditionings of the body, I need the body to function the way it's supposed to function. In fact, I remember my mother says that if you're reminded of a certain part of the body, it means there is pain in the body, in that part of the body. Right? So if you're not reminded of any specific part of the body, then generally your body is okay. Otherwise, you're reminded of a certain part. Today, my knee or my ankle or my shoulder, if you're reminded of a certain part, it means there is unease or some disease in that part of the body. So we want these to happen that way. Now he's extending, Pratyavadi Bhayankaramanna is extending that. And in the next one, he is invoking the various vahanas. Okay. So he's saying all these Digbalakas or the various forces, natural forces, etc., they are all waiting at your doorstep and they are waiting in their places, which means they are organizing themselves to awaken you, which means only when those are in their place, then there is a possibility of some possibility of rising above them will happen, right? So then that awakening process, that is possible. And now he goes into the various vahanas. Here, if you notice, he is invoking the various animals there. So what are those animals here? Dhatishu, Dhatishu te. So these are all the various things that support you. What is it, ma? I'm reminded of the beautiful son Paramashivan. கழுத்தில் இருந்த பாம்பு கேட்டு
யாவும் இருக்கும் இடத்தில் இருந்து விட்டால் எல்லாம் சௌக்கியமே.
எல்லாம் சௌக்கியமே. Correct. Correct. If all that remains in their place, then all is well. So Dhatishu te Vihagaraja Mrigadhiraja. So Vihagaraja is the king of all birds, which is Garuda. Here, Mrigadhiraja is the king of all animals, which is lion. Nagadhiraja, the king of all snakes, serpents, is Adisesha. Then Gajaraja is the king of all elephants. And this is there's an elephant called Airavata, Indra's vehicle. It has 7 tusks, I think 7 tusks, and it's a very strange looking animal, but 7 heads and 7 tusks or something like that. And it can fly. So that is Airavata, which is known to be the king of all elephants. Hayadhiraja. Hayadhiraja, Haya means horse. So the Raja or the king of all horses. Again, there is a horse by name Uchchaishravas in Indra's control, or the Indra's stable, if you want to call it. So there is an Uchchaishravas or a horse that has, again, weird looking horse with about 7 heads or something like that. And then that can also fly, right? These, he says, Swaswadhikara, they are all waiting to serve you. Mahimadhikamarthayante. Mahima adhika arthayante. So they are waiting to serve you so that they are glorified. Okay, this is what it says. Swaswadhikara, out of their own Swa adhikara means out of their own volition, or out of their own the recognition of their own duties. Like, for example, Nandi, for instance, knows its duty is to serve its master, Shiva, and it waits for the instructions from Shiva. Right? Likewise, each of the deities, the iconography of deities, you will see an animal. And the animal kind of waits in anticipation of an instruction from their master, knowing that that's their duty. The duty is to respond to the instruction of the master, and also to it's out of their own volition. It is not the attitude of servitude there is not out of it's not something that's imposed. It is not like, okay, thou shall serve me for the next 1,000 years. It is not out of a bondage that they are serving the master. It's completely out of their own volition, out of their own love that they're serving. And what P.B. Anna is exploring here is that these animals or these vahanas are waiting at the doorstep or at the at the altar of Venkateswara for what? So that he can climb on him and go around. See, there is these vahana, Raghu, what these vahanas are, all of these vahanas are used in this thing, right? Brahmotsavam, right? All of these vahanas are used in Brahmotsavam, is it?
There are some of these. On top of this, there are Surya Prabha Vahana, Chandra Prabha Vahana. Hamsa Vahana, Kalpa
Hamsa
Vriksha
Vahana.
Vahana,
Hmm.
and then Sarva Bhupala Vahana, and there is a Mutyapu Pandiri Vahana, and last one is Radhotsav.
Oh.
This is some significant, and there
These
is
are the key. These are the key
Ah.
highlights
Ah.
of the Vahanas he's got, right?
But
So
Hanumanta Vahana is also there, but it is not here.
Hanumanta Vahana. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Garuda and Hanuman both are separate Vahanas. True. But some of
Vihaka Raja is like a main key Vahana.
which one?
The first one, Vihaka Raja.
Vihaka Raja is the Garuda Vahana, right?
Every full moon day, that Garuda Vahana Seva is there. Today it is there.
Oh, today it's there, is it?
Every full moon day, Garudotsav,
Oh,
Garuda Vahana.
very nice. So, so these are various Vahanas, and see if you notice, you've got pretty much they try to cover all the um, um, all the animal aspects. So Vihaga is birds. So Vihaga Raja is the king of birds. Then you've got the king of animals. Then you've got the king of serpents, right? And then you got the king of elephants. Then you got the king of horses. So in a way, it goes to show that Venkateswara rides upon each of these. The concept of a Vahana is twofold. One is the Lord is treated as a king. So if you are riding, so for example, if you're riding the Mrigadhi Raja of all animals is the lion, and this man is riding the king of all animals, which means this man is a greater person. Right? It's like you may have a lot of small kingdoms who have kings, and then you have the emperor, and all these kings submit to that emperor, Chakravarti. So the Chakravarti assumes a much greater respect, regard, power, and all of that as compared to the kings. And the kings have their own subjects. The kings have their own subjects and their own ruling, and there are people who listen to them. But then these kings submit into an emperor. In that way, these animals, or what are the animals that are called out, are the king of their species. In a way, they are the lord of their species. These lords are now submitting to Balaji, Venkateswara. So, which means that one aspect is the lordship, overlordship. And as I was saying, as when you say Bhagavan, some entity is indicated as Bhagavan, which means there are 6 bhagas, or 6 qualities. One of the qualities is Aishwarya, the another quality is overlordship. Overlordship means you have completely out of their own volition, people look up to you and assume you as a lord. So that is one aspect of these animals taking him as the lord. The other aspect to see is that in any iconography, wherever you have an animal as the Vahana of a deity, symbolically, it should also be taken as those animal tendencies have been won over by this form. This energy form has won over. Like, for example, you take Kali or Devi as Mahishasura Mardini. So, what is she doing there? She is doing, she's annihilating or killing Mahisha Asura, the Asura that's taken the form of the bull. And what it means is those bull tendencies, those very strong animal tendencies are being subdued in the individual through this act. So what are the bull tendencies? If you can map these tendencies to some of those tendencies within us of being very, in terms of being heavily associated with the body, heavily associated with the likes and dislikes of the body, the pleasures and pains of the body. This can be represented by something like a bull. Likewise, lion. In this case, lion is considered as the king of all animals. And animals, if you can look at them as the species which are very associated with the physical nature of things. So what is he doing? Venkateswara is riding on that, which means he is not bounded by the physical tendencies anymore. Right? Which is an indication for us in a way to show that when you move towards that where we said in the previous shloka, in the previous verse, right? We said that you pravilasa nija shirsha deshaha. So which means you have all of these placed in their places or positions, you do the nyasa so that your bodily functions, your all of those tendencies are in their own place so that you can rise above them. So this whole idea of vahana is to rise above that. Mrigadhiraja, Nagadhiraja. So rise above the Naga tendencies, which means the tendencies, the reptilian tendencies that we carry. See, all of these tendencies exist within us, within our brain, within our system. Like for example, we naturally feel afraid when there is an attack on us. There is an attack on us, we become afraid, we become scared, we respond with fear. There is territorial tendencies we have. This is mine. These are territorial tendencies. So some of these very strong animal tendencies that we carry, then the tendency to procreate, the tendency to enjoy the bodily joys, these are all animal tendencies. They have to be kept within a certain framework so that you can rise above. That is the whole idea. Whenever I sit in sadhana, whenever I'm able to sit in sadhana, I am not dragged and pulled down by these basal tendencies. So I climb upon the Vihagaraja, Mrigadhiraja, Nagadhiraja, Gajaraja, Hayadhiraja. So all of these, the quintessential representation of these tendencies. And I rise above those tendencies. When I do that, then there is a possibility of this awakening happening. Sri Venkateswara Suprabhatam. Then that morning, and then there is this awakening that occurs. And for that awakening to happen, these tendencies have to be, you don't control them, but you rise above them. See, there is a difference between controlling and rising above, right? Controlling is something that will resurface. It will resurface during the process of when you're not conscious. When you're not conscious enough, when you're not aware enough, if you suppress something, it's like a spring it'll rebound. But if you are trying to rise above, knowing that it is there, but I keep it within its limit. So I create a framework, I create a boundary, I let it operate, but I let it operate in a certain framework, which is why the whole Purushartha is structured as Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So you create a framework for Kama, for Artha, for physical pleasures and also social pleasures. You create a framework of Dharma and let it operate in that framework so that you don't go all over the place. If you let some of these basal tendencies of yours operate in that space, then you can kind of redirect your attention and try to move into a slightly refined state of consciousness, which means you become a little less drawn by my despairs, my dejections, my depressions, my anxieties, my hankering, right? So all of these, I kind of bundle them and I say, let you operate in your own space, little space, and then I ride above you, right? So, in fact, as we said, even if you look at Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, the six not so conducive tendencies that we have, right? Anger, hatred, jealousy, and so on and so forth. These can be used in certain ways as long as we ride above them. We use them as a tool. Anger, for example, Christ used anger as a tool. When he walked into the synagogue and he found people had made the place of worship into a marketplace, He took a stick himself and started driving people out. Now it's hard to imagine somebody who's compassionate like Christ, who's able to take a crucifixion. Same individual is now getting angry and beating up people. Right? I mean, a thought comes to your mind, right? Oh, if you're such a, I mean, you've got so much of this thing within you, why don't you go beat up those Romans and drive them away, right? But that's not the idea. He's trying to represent something else there. The aspect of anger, he's using it as a tool to show there, because there, if he's going to stand and do a sermon, people in the marketplace are not going to get it. So the only way to quickly clear them off is use anger as a tool to drive them off. So you use these tools to essentially, when you use these as a tool, you're riding above them. Right? You're riding above them. You're riding above, like for example, if Mrigadhiraja represents aggression and anger, if you are riding on that Vahana, you're using that as a tool. You're using that as a tool to go. Similarly, when parents go and do that with children, it's always said that you don't show anger on the child because you don't know what to do, you don't know how to deal with that anger. You show anger because you know, now I'm going to use this consciously, I'm going to use this as a tool so that it's beneficial for the other. So the same Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, these can be converted as tools in the transactional engagement. And one who's able to do that is the one who is on the Vahana, is riding on those as a vehicle. Okay, so that is this particular verse. Dhati Shute Vihagaraja Mrigadhiraja Nagadhiraja Gajaraja Hayadhiraja Swaswadhikara Mahimadhi Kamarthayante Shri Venkatachalapate Tava Suprabhatam. The next one is also very beautiful. Suryendu Bhauma Buddha Vakpati Kavya Sauri Swarbhanuketu Divishat Parishat Pradhana Tvaddasa Dasa Charamavathi Dasa Dasa Shri Venkatachalapate Tava Suprabhatam. So the 9 planets are called out here. Surya Indu, Sun, Moon, Bhauma, Mars, Buddha, Mercury, Vakpati, the Lord of Speech, Guru, Brahaspati, Jupiter. Then Kavya and Sauri. Kavya is Venus, Sauri is Saturn. Because he is also Surya Putra, right? Saturn. So Sauri. Swarbhanu. Swabhanu. Rahu. Rahu's another name is Swahabhanu. Then Ketu. Ketu is the 9th graha. These are not planets, these are grahas. Okay. Planets are physical celestial bodies, but grahas are influences. Graha means an area of influence. So that is why go and look for Rahu and Ketu, you'll not find them in the solar system. The same thing with Surya, Indu, Bhauma. Surya, Indu, Bhauma, Buddha, Vakpati, Kavya, Sauri, Swabhanu, Ketu. Surya, Indu, Bhauma, Buddha, Vakpati, Kavya, Sauri, Swarbhanu, Ketu. Correct. 9. So the 9 Navagrahas, what is he saying? These are the Divishat Parishat Pradhanaha. These are the Pradhana, the chief amongst the gods, the chief amongst the deities. These are the celestials. These are the chief amongst the celestials. Tvaddasa Dasa Charamavadhi Dasa Dasaha. They are, how are they standing at your doorstep, at your altar? How are they waiting? See, let's not forget the context. All of these people are waiting at the doorstep or the altar of Venkateswara so that he wakes up. And again, so that is one pictorial that we carry in terms of visualization. The other visualization is These are aspects of the celestials or the deities or the environmental forces that are operating within us, and we are waiting in terms of riding over or trying to get over these and not be bounded by them, so that there is this process of awakening that happens, process of refinement in consciousness that happen within us, right? So both of these need to be seen in parallel. One is the aspect of devotion, where, oh Bhagavan, you're sleeping, wake up, and all of that, right? Now I want to worship you, I want to do alankaram and do all of that. But the other aspect is where you internalize this whole process, where you're invoking that presence within. Okay, so this constant parallel has to be drawn. Antar Jyoti, Bahir Jyoti, Pratyak Jyoti, Paratparaha, Atma Jyoti, Swayam Jyoti, Jyotir Jyoti, Namo Namaha. This Jyoti which is inside is outside, which is outside is everywhere. And the same Jyoti is what I prostrate down to. This constant in out needs to happen. In fact, this reminds me of one, in a way, a practice Jiddu Krishnamurti recommends. In one of the talks I remember hearing, he says, only if you are able to sit down and observe that so the way he presents it is, of course, nobody can present it the way he presents it, right? So it's very the way he will present it, the mind will automatically go into a meditative state. Very beautiful. But the way he presents this idea is that how do you observe that what the process that is happening here is reflected on the outside, and the process that is happening on the outside is reflected in the inside. Take the simple example of breathing. We breathe out, and there's this air that's going out, and you breathe in, and that air that is outside is coming within. So now the issue that happens within us is, at the moment the breath comes inside of me, this becomes my breath. Then I identify it. I kind of put a seal on it, saying this is my breath, this is my breathing, this is my air. But it's the same air. There is absolutely no distinction for the air that's going out and coming in. The air that's going out is exactly the same air that is coming in. Of course, if you we're not talking about the technicalities here, but then essentially air is air. There's this the last mantra of Isha Upanishad. Again, I forget that one. But if someone can bring that up, it's a very beautiful verse which says, at the last breath, all my 5 elements dissolve into the 5. So the air dissolves into the air, fire dissolves into the fire, earth dissolves into earth, and water dissolves into water. So if we are able to sit and observe ourselves as this movement, the movement that is happening inside is the movement that is happening on the outside, and the reflection of the outside is in the inside. So if this constant, the reflection we contemplate upon, it slowly dissolves this distinction that is there between the out and the in. And it makes us acutely aware that on the out, what we see is essentially a reflection of the in. So this process, the more we activate, the more we become aware of that the process on the outside is eventually a reflection of, it is a pratibimba. There it is a reflection of the process that is inside. And whatever is on the outside then feeds back into the inside, and then either it kind of enhances or enriches my experience, or it kind of there is detriment in my experience. Whatever happens, it is this exchange that is happening, right? So this constant, whenever we say Sri Venkateswara Suprabhatam, think of Venkateswara in Tirumala Devasthanam, the 9-foot tall statue that is standing there. At the same time, bring this essence or the presence of Venkateswara as this Achalapate, like we spoke the last week, that immovable force or presence that is there within. Achalapate, that which doesn't move, that which is always present, whether I am aware of it or not, that presence is always there, right? So this constant transaction is something we need to be aware of. Now, Suryendu Bhauma Buddha Vakpati Kavya Sauri Swarbhanu Ketu Divishat Parishat Pradhanaha. All of these 9, which are the principal celestials, Tvaddasa Dasa Charamavadhi Dasa Dasaha. What it means is they are the dasa of your dasa. Dasa dasa, which means they are not even your direct dasas. They are the servant of your servants. They are the devotees of your devotees. And they shall remain such till the end of time. Charamavadhi. Charamavadhi is till all time. Charama, till the end. Dasa dasaha, they will remain as the dasa of dasa. And this is a very, very central theme of the Vishishtadvaita philosophy. Being a dasa and also being dasa dasa. In fact, there is one Alvar, his name is Tondar Adi Podi Alvar. Tondar Adi Podi Alvar, which means Tondan means a servant. Tondan means somebody who is Tondan என்ன சொல்றது? Servant.
Follower. Follower.
இல்ல தொண்டன்கிறது சர்வன்ட் அண்ட் ஆல்வேஸ் அவர் சர்வ் பண்றவா பேரு தொண்டன்.
Somebody who is at your disposal.
Always at your disposal. Correct.
So Tondan is Tondar Podi Adi Podi Alvar, which means Tondar Adi Podi means the servants. Adi Podi, which means the dust of the feet of a devotee, the dust of the Padarenu, it's also called as Padarenu, the dust of the feet of the devotee, to that dust, I am a servant. Okay, so I am a sir. I don't even, for me, imagining, associating, or even thinking about Narayana is way up there, right? I don't, எனக்கு அதுக்கு கூட தகுதி இல்ல is the kind of feeling they carry. I don't even have the eligibility to communicate directly with Narayana. The devotees of Narayana, I serve them. And this is a very central theme. And in fact, Bhagavatam also, there are many such stories which depict that particular aspect, where this is a very, highlighted aspect of Vishishtadvaita that gets picked up. So, Tondaradi Podi Alvar is somebody who is Dasa Dasaha. He's a Dasa Dasa. So, there's a very interesting, I remember having mentioned this before. It's an interesting conversation between an Advaitin and a Vishishtadvaitin. So an Advaitin says, Soham. Okay, he says Soham. Saha Aham. That I am. Advaita, non-duality. Then a Vishishtadvaitin responds saying, Da Soham. He adds a Da at the front. He says Da Soham, which means Dasa Aham. So you are saying Soham, Saha Aham. I am that. This is a non-duality. Then he says, the Vishishtadvaitin comes and says, Dasoham, I am Dasa. Dasa Aham, I am a servant. Then the Advaitin adds a Sa in the front again. And he says, Sada Soham, which means always I am that. Then the Vishishtadvaitin comes and adds another da in the front. He says, Dasa dasoham. So, I am the servant of the servant. இதுக்கு முடிவே கிடையாது, இது போயிட்டே இருக்கும். But one adds a sa, one adds a da, one adds a sa, one adds a da. So it keeps going on. But it is to show that this dasa dasoham is a very central idea, where you don't need directly the grace of the divine, but the grace of the devotee is enough for you to manage most of the things in a way. To be able, which means the grace of the devotee is equivalent to the grace of the Lord. Here, in this case, what he is saying is that all the navagrahas, and there are beneficial grahas, there are malefic grahas, right? There are grahas which happen to be, they happen to hinder that what we want to do. There are grahas that help and empower us in what we want to do. And these are essentially celestial influences that are there, right? Of course, if you look at it, they're just rocks flying out in the air. They are just essentially just big, huge meteor-like bodies that are just floating around. But they have significant impact. The rays that come from there have an impact on our day-to-day life. A very simple example is that of the moon, right? Our body responds to the moon, the phases of the moon. So in the same way, each of these, the movement of the sun, I mean, we say it as movement of the sun, but the relative movement of the sun, the relative movement of the movement of the moon, the relative movement of planets, the planets like Jupiter, Saturn, and so on and so forth, they have significant impact on us, whether we like it or not. Which is why this horoscope that we draw is the natal chart that we draw is an indication of the influence of the planets that the formation that was there at the time of birth. There are ways in which you can try to get over it, which is what in this case he's saying. If you are a devotee of Narayana, these will remain your servants, which means they will be dasa dasaha. They will be the dasa of you. Who are you? I am a dasa of Narayana. So I am a dasa of Narayana, and these planets and grahas, the influences, celestial influences, will remain at my command. Right? There is a story of Hanuman who has this one of the characters in our mythology is Hanuman, who has the ability to not be influenced by any of these grahas, including Shani. Right? The Sade Sati of Shani, one person it did not influence or could not be influenced was Hanuman, because he had the power to win over them. And that also because he was the student, the disciple of Surya Bhagavan. And Surya is the chief amongst all of the grahas, right? So, but that also so the way it is presented, the idea is presented, because he was the dasa of Rama. He was Rama dasa. Because of the dasatvam, because of the dasatva bhava, all of these grahas could not impact him. See, if you stand up to your own accord, a lot of times when we stand up to our own accord and with our own strength, our own mettle, our own acumen, we stand up, there is only so much that you can hold on to. There is only so much that you can withstand, right? How much ever empowered you are, there is only so much. But in devotion, what happens is when you have submitted yourself in devotion, in love, then there is a greater, there is something that is greater that kind of takes over, that helps you go through it. And we have experienced this in our lives, right? A lot of times when somebody was extremely ill in your family and your You can do all that you want. You can go to the best doctors, you can do the best kind of treatment, you can use your intelligence to go search the internet to this, that, and all of that you can do. But then when you kind of sit down and surrender yourself, then there is this helplessness that sets in, and then you sit and then give in yourself and say that I've done the best that I can do. Now I'm offering my intellect, my emotion, all of that to you. When we sit there, then what happens? I'm sure most of us would have experienced. We are old enough to have experienced some of this. Then what happens is something which is magical, right? Which is it's difficult to describe, and you can't now then say everybody when you are in difficulty go and do the same thing that I did. No, it will not work that way. There was something that you gave up. There's some holding that was there that I can resolve this, I can do this, and I can try this and all that you gave up. When that giving up happens, you become a dasa. In attitude, one becomes a dasa, which means I am willing to now accept what is being given to me as prasada. I'm willing to take that as whatever now that comes my way. I'm willing to take that as the gift of providence. When that happens, then whatever is the outcome, maybe the person may, the severely ill person may stand up, get up from the acute condition, or they may possibly just pass away. Either ways, your heart is in a space to receive it well. Right? Till that we apply our intelligence or apply our skills and talent and all of that, it generates more restlessness. It generates greater, and of course we need to do that to get to a point of exasperation, and then you give up. Now there, when you become a dasa, then all the elemental forces, then they kind of harmonize. Why? Because you have allowed a greater presence to take charge. You have dissolved your identity, your presence, and you have let a greater presence to take charge. That experience is something, when that happens as a very personal experience, that is this experience of dasa dasa. And all of these grahas, in this context, you look at grahas or you look at any the daivika forces, all the forces of nature, natural forces that are there, they will kind of harmonize and respond to your state of consciousness at that time. That is what is saying. And then you say, Shri Venkateswara Suprabhatam, which means now I am in this state of submission. I am in this state of supplication where I have tried all that I can. In fact, there's a very interesting, maybe I've said this. Oh, we have run 5 minutes over. Okay, sorry. Osho, when he had this moment of enlightenment, he says, I laughed out loud. Narrates it later. Somebody asks him, how was it, the moment of enlightenment for you? He says, I laughed out loudly. And they asked, why did you laugh? Where did this laughter come from? And he says, somewhere there's this response to see that because he could experience, I've spent lifetimes doing all kind of jugglery, all kinds of spiritual jugglery, standing on one feet, hanging down by the tree, doing yoga, asana, doing dhyana, tantra, mantra, all of that I've done. And then I come to this point, when that realization dawned, and it just seemed so simple. This is it. The presence right now, what I'm experiencing, that is it. This is realization. There is nothing, there's no grand fanfare or whole there's no there's no extreme the fanfare about it. There's nothing really about it. This is it. This is the truth. This is it. It's right here, right now. And when he experienced that, he said, I let out this laughter, thinking that it is so stupid of me doing all of this. But then he asks, could you have gotten here without all of that effort? Then the answer is no. You still have to go through that, all of that effort. And then you come to a point of complete helplessness within. And in that helplessness, and it's a real giving up. It's a real giving up. It's not so much in despair. It is in a sense of devotion. Is that I have done my bit. Now I am going to completely rest in supplication. And that occurs. So the dasa means that. Tondar adipodi alvar means that when I am able to be in that state of complete acknowledgement that something else, I need to let something else pass. Again, this we mentioned before. Jab main tha, hari nahi. Jab hari tha, mai nahi. Kabir's doha, right? When I was there, the Lord wasn't there. But when the Lord is here, I am not. Because I have moved, then I have let the Lord in. I've created the space for the Lord to come in. So this is the beautiful shloka. Suryendu bhauma buddha vakpati kavya sauri swarbhanu ketu divishat parishat pradhanaha Vaddasa dasa charamavadhi dasa dasaha Shri Venkatachalapate tava suprabhatam.
The dasa நீங்க ஃபுல்லா டீட்டெயிலா சொன்னீங்க. The dasa concept probably highlights the quality of humility that we have to bring inside.
Correct.
அந்த பக்தி டிவோஷனோ ஒரு பக்தியோ இருக்கும்போது if humility is missing in that, then it is just very superficial. அந்த ஹியூமிலிட்டியோட அந்த டிவோஷனோ ஒரு பக்தியோ இருந்ததுனாக்கா அதான் probably this humility in the background highlights the quality of these people who say that I am the dasa. அவரோட அந்த humility இருக்கு இல்லையா, that is what is there, that indicates the level of bhakti in them.
Absolutely, Mama. When they themselves say that the Lord is so high for me, even a devotee is sufficient for me to be devoted to. The way you're saying it shows that I am, and it's not. It's like my guru says, humility is like an underwear. You never wear it on the outside, unless you're Superman, of course. But you don't know.
But again, but then when you talk, people realize that yes, you are.
Somebody else should feel it. Exactly. Somebody else who recognizes.
அந்த தொண்டரடி பொடி ஆழ்வாரோட பத்தி நீங்க சொல்லும்போது அவரே இப்படி இருக்கும்போது நம்மலாம் இன்னும் அவரோட பாதத்தூடி கூட சமம் கிடையாதுன்னு நமக்கு தோணும். அந்த ஹியூமிலிட்டி வந்தாதான் அவர் என்ன சொல்றாருன்ட்டு அவர் மூலமா நம்ம வந்து we can reach the Lord.
Correct. Absolutely. So that has to be recognized by somebody else that, oh, humble arkanan. We cannot go on a mission to be humble. We can't take that up as a mission, and then it's a failed mission. At the start itself, it's a failed mission, because the moment you're using a measure to be humble, then the whole process is a failed process. Because then your measurement, where does it come from? Oh, does somebody notice and tell that I'm humble?
அந்த அகங்காரம் வந்துருது. அகங்காரத்தை ஃபுல்லா மறைக்கணும்னா அந்த ஹியூமிலிட்டி வந்து it has to be so strong, only then it will cover up the ahankara. Otherwise the ahankara is even slightest thing grows inside our mind, and the humility full cover பண்ணா கஷ்டம், it shows up.
Correct. Which is why it said that some of these tendencies or nature, it becomes our nature, and somebody else recognizes it in us. Not that we stand up to say that I am very humble. Okay, so so then the point is lost. I wouldn't be so there. The intention to be humble, it's a very subtle thing, right? The whole process of refinement is such that you don't recognize the refinement as much as others do. That is the process. But what you recognize as is joy. What you recognize as a certain state of fulfillment, a certain state of completeness, a certain state of purnatva, a certain state of bliss and joy within. This is what we will experience. We will not experience these qualities. Oh, he's so compassionate. Oh, he's so humble. He's so caring. These are not qualities I should recognize. These are qualities maybe somebody else recognizes. What I recognize within myself should be joy, bliss, contentment, fulfillment. Correct. Very nice. Om Shri Akantaya Kalyana Nidhe Nidheerthinam Shri Venkata Nivasaya Srinivasaya Mangalam Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanayeti Samarpayami Sadashivayeti Samarpayami Jagadambikayeti Samarpayami Satgurunathayeti Samarpayami Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Guru.
Hari Om. Ram Ram.
நாளை கார்த்தால யாத்ரா வரவா வந்து we'll meet up for the 30 minutes Bhagavad Gita chanting.